college basketball seniors be allowed to come back for another year of eligibility because of the coronavirus canceling the NCAA tournament? You know what? I'm kind of leaning no. Hi, I'm Marky Billson. Now, let me just explain this to everyone who doesn't know. Of course, we all know there are no games right now. And the question is, a lot of coaches have been saying, you know, my seniors who didn't get to play in the NCAA tournament, they should be allowed to come back for another season, interestingly enough. They've already allowed baseball players to be able to have another year of eligibility, but I got to tell you something, spring sport athletes and college basketball players, it's two whole different situations when you're looking at scholarships. For baseball and other spring sports, it does make sense. These players literally missed out on most of their conference season, if not all of it. Baseball doesn't have as many scholarships. There are only 11.7 scholarships allowed for a baseball team, which seems to me to be a little bit light by the NCAA. Now, you're allowed 35 players. What it is that most baseball players don't have full scholarships. The rule is 35-player maximum roster, 27 players can be on scholarship. None of those players can have less than a quarter scholarship. And just to give you an example, though, how this isn't going to, necessarily hurt, look, there's going to be a baseball draft. There are going to be plenty of seniors that are going to be selected in that baseball draft. This may be the last year of a long baseball draft of 40 rounds, talking about cutting it back to 20. So if you're drafted this year, you're probably more likely to sign now than ever before. So this is another thing where you can give it to the baseball player that you might not be able to give to the basketball player in terms of scholarships and such. The NBA draft is not going to take away very many college seniors from the NCAA. We know that. But I mentioned what the parameters were in college baseball. You're allowed 35 players on your roster, 11.7 scholarships, most of them partial that are spread out. You can't give anybody less than a quarter scholarship. And again, I'm repeating myself, but here, I just want you to know, 27 players can be on scholarship. Now, just using ETSU as an example, they've got 33 players on their baseball roster, but only 6 of them are seniors. Now, out of that, probably somebody will come back, but also it's likely somebody will be drafted. It's likely that a few of them will say, you know what, I don't know if I want to come back for, a partial scholarship, et cetera, and they'll get on with their life's work. If you're watching in Pennsylvania, all my old Pittsburgh buddies, at Pitt, okay, they've got 34 players on their baseball team, only 5 are seniors. So you're really talking about there maybe only 1 or 2 players coming back for baseball, possibly, and they'll be able to fit those guys in. But in basketball, it's a real rich get richer situation. Let's just talk about ETSU. Now, Steve Forbes has been lobbying for this. Dick Vitale has been saying it's been a good idea. If ETSU was allowed to have their 5 seniors return for 2021, they would have a monster team. They would have a team that would be in the top 25. They would have a legitimate chance to make a run in the NCAA tournament, and a longer run than they probably would have made this year. Now, I could see Jerome Rodriguez leaving. Remember, he almost left last year. But, there's also a chance, somebody else might leave for, the G League or overseas, But here is a coach, Steve Forbes, remember this, who knows now his chances of leaving ETSU are lessening by the year. It's going to be 55 in a few days. And frankly, with the cancellation of the NCAA tournament, probably won't be that many coaching vacancies. And although he did interview at Arkansas last year, there'll probably only be about 1 or 2 major college basketball positions that he could go to at 55. That's about when the big-time programs say, you know what? Thanks, but no thanks. Now, an exception might be, say, Bruce Pearl. But of course, when you look at coaches that have gotten jobs after 55 at major programs, Rick Barnes being another one of them down at Tennessee, these guys did it before and they did it at a high level. Forbes has done it, well, once on a mid-major level. There is a difference. Now, I am intrigued to see, there's a rumor that maybe, just maybe, Bruce Pearl would like to leave Auburn. After all, it's getting to be a little bit of a prickly situation for him down there. And while the getting is good, return home to Boston College, where the major media there and his hometown would no doubt make him a true college basketball coaching star, bigger than he already is. That's something to look at. If that happened, I could see Forbes being candidate to Auburn. Sure, I could. Then again, here's Steve Forbes, who loves to recruit the JUCOs, and maybe Auburn doesn't want that. What with their prickly situation and, say, the NCAA taking a long look at their program for the next few years, which you know that they're going to do. So, who knows? But here is a coach who knows he could return a monster team. It could make a run in the NCAAs, and although he'd be 56, if his team made the Final Four or so, a top 5 program probably would look at Steve Forbes under that situation in all likelihood. That's his chance to get out of ETSU. Now, what the situation then, though, comes, think about this, is, oh yeah, players, come back, and make me rich. Because they're not getting any money. I mean, the return of so many seniors, that would probably mean millions of dollars to him, potentially, but the players, what do they get? They have the glory of playing another year at ETSU, maybe, taking some grad classes for free, maybe, But it's another year of not earning money. No guarantee you're going to make the NCAA tournament. There are no guarantees. And it's not getting on with your life's work. Either a real job, or yes, if you're good enough to play in, let's say, the G League, something like that, And this is where the pay the players people come in. And it's a very, very good point that the pay the players people make. Forbes would be earning millions on the back of labor that isn't being paid. And really, like I said, they would be foregoing checks to be able to make him rich. What would they get out of it? Now, yes, the Buccaneers were deprived of the chance to play in the NCAA tournament. But do you really think they would have won it? They're 250 to 1 shot. Now, if another year of eligibility is given to ETSU seniors, as I said, they'll be a monster team. They'll even return Ladarius Brewer, who averaged 13 points a game at Southeast Missouri State. He'll be eligible at guard. But what about incoming players? How do they fit in? Where will the vacant scholarships come from? They've already got a commitment from Paul Smith out of DeMatha Catholic. He's their only one. But, 6'8" forward. Looks like maybe he could be the guy that replaces Jerome Rodriguez if it's not Monsanto, this sort of thing. The questions in basketball are so much greater than they are in baseball. Are you going to increase scholarships? Okay, if that's the case, do you give ETSU 5 more scholarships because they've got 5 seniors? Whereas, how does that work with Title IX? Does Brittany Azell all of a sudden get 5 scholarships? What's going on here? Brittany Azell, the women's basketball coach at ETSU. If the motivation for seniors on teams that would have made the NCAAs is to return so they can play in the tournament, what about teams that had losing records? Are their seniors not allowed to come back? The rich get richer. Think about this. By this theory, let me ask you this. Should high school seniors, because we know there are going to be high school tournaments and postseasons canceled, should high school basketball players be able to return for their senior season in this situation? Now you understand, when you make that analogy, just how difficult it is to say, oh yeah, that college senior, he should automatically come back. Sure. Now, I've thought about retaining eligibility if a player qualified for an academic scholarship. Okay, sure, in a good grad school, it's on the school, it would have been there already. But then again, what about the player who got straight A's and was on a losing team? Is it literally he doesn't get this academic scholarship or this other year of eligibility to play because his team is bad? Think about this for a second. Already athletic directors are saying they're not going to be able to afford the extra scholarships. It's just a kettle of fish that probably is not going to work out. Now, thing is, not giving the players an extra year of eligibility, I think will probably help ETSU in the long run. Hear me out. It increases the chances that Forbes will stay for the reasons we mentioned before, age primarily one, but he could have a 15-year career or so in Johnson City and win 20 games every year. Yeah. Now let's say these players, let's say all 5 of the seniors for ETSU came back. Monster team. Absolute monster team. But if no scholarships are given, what do you do then? What happens to, a Paul Smith? Is he told, well, I liked you then, but not now and all that? I mean, so then, at the end of 2021, ETSU, assuming no extra scholarships were given, and I don't see how they can do it in basketball, then you have to replace 7 players who may have made a run in the NCAA tournament. And then ETSU might be looking for a new coach. And he has to replace 7 scholarship players. ETSU would fall off a cliff immediately. But you know what? If the 5 players are saying, you know what, you've had 4 seasons here, I mean, let's face it. Or actually, in the case, most of them are JUCOs, so they haven't, and none of them have had 4 seasons at ETSU, but they have all had at least 2. Then you're still returning, even without those seniors, a pretty good team at ETSU next year. I mean, you've got Octavian Corley, the transfer from the Nevada Junior College, replacing Lucas Gasson. You've got Bo Hodges back. You've got Patrick Good back. You've got the aforementioned Brewer, suddenly into the lineup, the transfer from Southeast Missouri State, who scored a lot of points for the Bears. You've got Vonnie Patterson. I mentioned Monsanto. I'm speaking of a recruit who didn't play at all this year, but really had a nice career down in Florida, and Darius Monsanto. I really think that he might be a player that could replace, to a certain extent, Jerome Rodriguez, be that forward under the boards, that sort of thing, if Smith isn't. But I like what I've seen of Monsanto's bio. And then, of course, I mean, if the seniors do leave, you've got 4 other scholarships, with one going to Smith, that Steve Forbes' famous JUCO talent comes in. ETSU would contend for a conference title. They'd win 20 games again. They'd continue to play on a high level, and there wouldn't be a drop-off after 2021. Now, look, I thought ETSU could make a run in the NCAA tournament. I really did. But at the end of the day, they would have been an 11 seed, a 12 seed. They weren't going to win it. But by setting the school record for victories, winning the Southern Conference regular season championship, and winning the conference tournament, I think ETSU probably accomplished more this year than any college basketball team in the NCAA, maybe except Gonzaga. Now that's a pretty good year, and it ends on a high note, not with it could have happened in the NCAA tournament and a loss. Isn't that enough? And doesn't it also ensure, if status quo is kept, that ETSU stays a good program for a long, long time? I'm Marky Billson. Now, folks, if you like what I've been saying here, why don't you follow me on YouTube? I've got more than 1,000 videos there. Our own playlist of ETSU videos, if that's what you're into. Tennessee Volunteers, Pittsburgh Steelers, if you're one of my friends from Pittsburgh. I've got a Pittsburgh playlist. I got a lot of different playlists. I'm sure there's one that will suit your fancy. I've got a NASCAR playlist, a couple of Southern Conferences, an SEC. I've got a lot. Caleb Calhoun, Alford, Tennessee. So subscribe, because I'm putting up the archives of my show and making these videos every single day. And we're going to be taking this, certainly I'm sure, to a new radio station or increasing the podcast soon. But this is the next big thing, certainly if not in Tri-Cities media. It could be somewhere else, who knows. But it is a growing channel, if you will, with a lot of influence, because I say the things that need to be said that others are afraid to say. So why don't you follow me on YouTube? Follow me on Twitter, at Marky Billson, MarkyBillson, and also Medium. I've got my Medium page right there with almost 400 different columns. I'm sure you'll find more than just one that you enjoy. But until then, I'm Marky Billson, and I hope you'll take a look at my YouTube page.